try to tell you. This country, you gotta make the money first. Then when you get the money, you get the power. Then when you get the power, then you get the woman. That's why you gotta make your own.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Will's VG Addiction. I'm going to do something a little bit different than what I normally do. One of my favorite YouTubers, Mr. Dude 206, recently did a video where he was tagged to talk about the 5 most expensive games in his collection. I don't remember who it was who tagged him, but he also had tagged another one of my favorite YouTubers, EdT1138, and I thought it was something that would be kind of fun for me to do, specifically to tag some of my friends locally who have YouTube channels but have kind of let those YouTube channels die off or don't normally do videos like this. So those guys are my buddy Chris at CP Game Collection on YouTube, Tyler at Tyler Retro Gamer on YouTube, We Know Video Games, my good buddy Mike, who owns a store out here in the local mall. He also used to do a YouTube channel, but he hasn't done anything in like 2 years maybe. But I'd like to see him get back into it and talk about something, especially something like this, because I know he's got a lot of good stuff in his collection. And then a couple guys who aren't local, but I still consider them family. My buddy Joe Ross at Cerulean Games, and Brody at 8-Bit Brody on YouTube, also at Cerulean Games. So I have a tendency to run my mouth when I do these videos. I don't think I've done many that are under 20 minutes because when it comes to video games, I like to talk and it's really hard to get me to shut up. So I'm going to try to keep this short and concise and get right into it, though everything here does kind of have a story. So I'm actually going to talk about 2 separate sets of my top 5 most expensive games. I'm going to break it up by NES because I'm mainly an NES collector and most of my expensive games are for the NES, but I also wanted to talk about some of the other systems that I have. But as I was going through my collection, I noticed that the majority of the other expensive games are for the Super Nintendo, and I'm not really much of a Super Nintendo collector, but I just happen to have these games anyway. So let me go ahead and get right on into it. Now this game is the only game that I've had since I was a kid that I'm going to be talking about today. Unfortunately, it does not have the box and the manual, and it's the only one that I'm going to be talking about that is not complete. It is a copy of Sonic Blast Man 2 for the Super Nintendo. Now, I remember playing Sonic Blast Man in the arcades, and I remember there was a speed bag, and I don't remember if you hit the speed bag in between rounds, like as a bonus thing, or if that was the game. I also remember playing the first one, renting it on the Super Nintendo, and I think I played that with my father, and that might be why he bought this one thinking it was the first one. I'm not really sure. I don't remember, but it's kind of a middle of the road beat 'em up. I'm actually really surprised that it's expensive as it is now. Right now it looks like the cart, a loose cart, is going for about $85. Now I'll be honest with you, I forgot that I even had this until about 2012. That's when I got back into collecting after taking like a 6-year layoff. It was just in there. I never really thought twice about it. When I moved out here to Albuquerque in 2013 and I was building the game shelves behind me, I started looking at some of these games and just for the hell of it decided to look up the values, and I was actually really surprised that it shot up as much as it did. I'm actually surprised it's worth anything because again, it's not that great a game. So anyway, moving along. Number 4 on my non-NES list is Final Fantasy III. And this game is very complete. It has the box, as you can see, the cart, manual, map, and inserts. Now, when I got back into collecting in 2012, that's when I started hitting thrift stores and whatnot. And this is actually the second copy that I found in a thrift store. When I initially found it, I was living in Southern California, and there was a thrift store there that always got really, really good stuff, but they got really wise to video games. And they started pricing stuff at eBay prices. So the day that I went in and I saw this, there was also a copy of The Secret of Mana, a boxed copy. Now I remember seeing it and my heart just, popping out of my chest until I saw the price. So Final Fantasy III was, I believe, $75 and The Secret of Mana was $55. Needless to say, I did not walk out of the store with those games that day, but it kind of ate away at me more and more throughout the week, and I went back 4 or 5 days later and it was still there. And it was more of an impulse thing. I mean, I didn't think I was ever going to find these games in the wild again. And like I said, I know it was eBay pricing at the time, but I folded and I bought them. So funny enough, about 8 months later when I I moved out here to Albuquerque, I found another copy at a thrift store for $3. It was in pretty good condition, and it also came with a manual for Final Fantasy II. So I took all the best condition contents of that and put it into one game, and I sold the other one off for $55. It was still in good condition, still came with the manual and all that. I kind of regret selling it that low, but at the time I thought it was fair, and I just wanted to get rid of it. So anyway, moving along. Again, something I found in 2012 when I got back into collecting. I was cruising Craigslist while I was at work, supposed to be working, and there was a guy selling a few Super Nintendo games. He had a complete copy of Sunset Riders for the Super Nintendo. Now this game, it's in okay condition. There's a small tear. I don't know if you can see that right at the top, a very small tear. There's a little bit of wear on the corners there, but you know, I know it's hard to see with these plastic coverings, but it's still in pretty good shape. I got that for 40 bucks. He was also selling the Death of Superman or Death and Return of Superman, whatever it's called, and also a complete copy of Knights of the Round. Now, when I initially emailed the guy, I wanted Sunset Riders and Superman. So not but 5 minutes later, you know, I wanted to look up Knights of the Round because I didn't even know what it was at the time, and I saw it was, you know, a beat 'em up, a Capcom beat 'em up. And then I looked up the value and I was like, holy shit, this is like an $80 game. So he was also selling that one for 40, and by the time I messaged him back, he had already sold it off to somebody else. But I'm actually really happy to have gotten that when I did. It's an alright game. I'm actually really surprised that that game has shot up as much as it has. For a loose copy these days, it's about 85 bucks. For a complete copy, it's upwards of $200. And I also I forgot to mention, for Final Fantasy III, that goes for about 50 bucks loose and $100 to $150 for a complete copy, depending on completeness and, of course, depending on condition. So, number 3 on my non-NES list, I have a complete copy of Final Fight 3. Now, this is a game I've had the cart since roughly around 2002, 2003. That was about the time when I just started buying up everything I possibly could that I wanted as a kid but couldn't afford. You're talking about TurboGrafx 16, Turbo Duo, just tons and tons of different games. Atari Jaguar, you know, and I'm glad I bought those things when I did because they're really expensive now. But I got in the cart for something like 16 bucks, but it was in awful condition. The label was just torn up. One of the plastic tabs on top was broken. So that's something that always bothered me a little bit, but not enough to buy another copy. When I got back into collecting in 2012, it started bothering me more and more. So I was on the lookout for a cart upgrade, but it was a really expensive cart at the time, more so now. But eventually I pieced it together. I think I bought the box first, and then I found the manual, which I had to wait for about two and a half years to find. And then my buddy Mike had gotten a cartridge traded into his store. So I got that off of him then. So I have a really nice condition now copy of Final Fight 3, and that's another one that's really shot up lately. It looks like it's about 90 bucks loose and upwards of $200 for a complete copy. That leads me to my number 1 most expensive non-NES game, and that is a complete copy of Musha for the Sega Genesis. And funny story about this one, everything has a little bit of a story. I actually found this at that thrift store that I got the Final Fantasy III and the Secret Mana from back in 2014. So I was already living out here in Albuquerque, and I was going back to California to visit my girlfriend at the time, who was getting out of the military. So while I was down there, after she had received her award and had her little ceremony and whatnot, I told her I wanted to hit up the thrift stores and maybe go to lunch. This was in a really upscale, ritzy area. She did not like me going to the thrift stores when we were together. She thought it was dumb. She thought the whole game collecting thing was stupid. But she was cool with it then, which I was really surprised about. So I hit up the thrift store, and I see Musha sitting in the showcase, and again, my heart like was pounding out of my chest, and then such a huge letdown when I saw the price. At the time, a complete copy, they were just starting to creep over about $300 on eBay. And this one was $179. So, you know, that's one of those things that I really had to think about. at the time I only spent more than $100 or anywhere even near $100 one other time prior to that. So spending $179 was like, it was something I had never done before and I wasn't too keen on doing. So I honestly sat there and thought about it for like 15 minutes while my girlfriend at the time was looking at purses and whatnot. But I finally decided to do it, and be completely honest, I did it with the intention of reselling it. When I got back home, I just could not bring myself to do it. Of all the systems that I collect for, the NES is what I'm working towards a complete set for, and the only one that I would ever even consider getting a complete set for is the Sega Genesis, just because I love the library so much. So I figured if I ever do decide to do that, I would honestly regret having sold it. I don't think I will ever find it complete for that price ever again. And it turns out it's actually a really good game too. So that's the reason why I bought it, and that's the reason why I kept it, and I probably will not be selling it anytime soon. So that leads me into the NES games. Now, not but 2 weeks prior to finding that Musha, I had purchased a copy of Snow Brothers at a local game store. It was the cart and box only. It was $160. And again, as I mentioned, that was the only time, or that was the first time that I had ever even considered spending anywhere near $100 on one game. So, you know, that was one of those things. I maybe 3 or 4 months prior to that decided that I wanted to collect a complete NES collection. That was one of those games I'd never run across in the past, and I didn't think I was ever going to run across again for that price. I thought it was reasonable. At the time, I think the cart by itself was like $120. So I picked it up, and honestly, I felt sick to my stomach the entire day after that. But you know, I came to appreciate it, and I came to live with it. It took me about 1.5 years to find a manual for, I believe it was 50 bucks. So I have a complete copy for what wound up being about $210, and there's a little bit of wear at the top. And again, you probably can't even see it, but I'm very happy that I actually picked this up when I did. Did I say what Musha goes for? Sorry, I'm fucking this up. So Musha is roughly $150 loose and upwards of $400 complete. Snow Brothers, looking at my notes, is, wow, somewhere around $200 loose now. So for all the NES games, the complete in box prices are, they're all over the place, really. So it looks like $300 to $600 for a complete copy of Snow Brothers these days. My number 4 NES game is Bonk's Adventure. Now, I got this game off of eBay. It was the carton manual, and it was sometime in late 2014, I think. You know what? I'm just gonna say what the prices are that I paid for them. Who gives a shit, right? I think I paid $350 for the carton manual. And again, just being really patient, I finally found a box for 50 bucks, and the box is in actually pretty good shape. There's a little bit of wear up on the top right here, otherwise it's in good shape. There's actually, let me show you this. I think this is kind of cool for nostalgic purposes, but there is actually a Blockbuster sticker. Let's see, right there, $7.99. Ain't that about it? I thought that was pretty cool, and that's the reason why I haven't taken that off. So Bonk's Adventure is roughly $350 now loose, and upwards of $700 for a complete copy. Now we're going to get into the top 3 games. These are top 3 games, period. I've got a complete copy of Panic Restaurant. Now, I've owned, I believe, 3 or 4 copies of this over the last couple years, and as a collector, I've had this obsessive compulsive thing about labels. The first copy that I bought was in pretty good shape. I think there was like a small ding in the label. So I'm trying to remember the sequence. I think it was 3 copies. So I remember I bought the first one, and it was expensive. It was probably like somewhere around $380. I found another copy a guy sold to me for $179, and the only flaw is there was a little chip, a very small chip in the plastic at the bottom, and I wasn't really satisfied with those 2 copies. So I sold off one. I traded the other to my buddy Mike, actually, for a bunch of other games. And then I got this one, and I honestly, I couldn't even tell you what I paid for it. Probably, I want to say 480, 450, somewhere around there. It definitely was not more than 500. But yeah, it's a lot of money regardless. And I had to do a lot of hustling, a lot of buying and selling and whatnot to afford that. So that leads me to my next game, my number 2 game, and this is another one I've owned a couple of copies of over the last few years or so. I have a complete copy of Little Samson.
Little Samson, Little Samson, Little Samson, Little Samson.
I really don't even want to take this out of the box, but believe me, this game, the box, the manual, everything is mint as you'll ever see. It's even still got the original retail wrapping. The only flaw, I wouldn't even call it a flaw, but I put some tape right there on the plastic on the outside to keep it from tearing, but it's got the H-seam on there and all that, and it's got the hang tab, and this thing is as mint as mint can get. So, starting with this one, I bought my first copy in 2014, and it was probably, I think, the 3rd game that I spent over $100 on, and I spent, geez, what was it, $550 for a cart and a really a gorgeous cart, but the manual was in just awful condition. But I was happy with it. I was cool with it. And then somewhere I got the idea that I wanted to get all the top games complete in box. So fast forward a couple years, there was a guy selling this beautiful copy right here on eBay, and I don't remember what he was selling it for, but something that I absolutely never do, but for whatever reason I decided to do it this time. I messaged him and asked him if his buy it now price was firm. We got to chit-chatting through emails, and we moved the transaction over to Nintendo Age, and he actually gave me a massive discount, I guess, to make up for PayPal. And no, I take that back, I still pay through PayPal, but for the eBay fee. So, oh man, I don't remember what I paid for it. I don't even know if I want to say what realm it was in, but like I said, we're all family here, right? I think I paid about $1,700 for that. And the thing is, let me rewind back a little bit. So with the other Little Samson copy that I had, the one with the bad manual, I actually found a box for that for $400. So I completed that copy for about $950. I actually wound up selling that one for $1,600. So the fact that I paid about $1,700 for this one and I sold the other one for $1,600, it really wasn't that bad, I don't think, in the long run. And that leads me to another game that I've my most expensive game that I've also owned multiple copies of. It is a complete copy of the Flintstones Surprise Dinosaur Pete. Now this one, oh man, I've got some horror stories with this game. Not this particular game, but with Flintstones in general. First copy I bought was a fake. I bought it off eBay, and that was a pain in the ass to get that situated. But never ever buy a game off of eBay, a high-end game off of eBay, until you see board pics. When these people take these potato pictures that are all blurry and messed up, don't buy it. It turned out to be a really bad fake, actually. So I worked that out. Eventually I found another copy for roughly $700. Again, a lot of money. The label's not perfect. I had that one for a while. I found another one in a lot. No, I take that back. I think I bought another one off of eBay for roughly the same price, and again, it had just a little ding in the corner, and it bugged the hell out of me. And then I wound up finding another one in a lot full of games that also came with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters, and I think I had gotten that in like 4 or 5 other games for like $900. So I sat on those for a while. I wanted a complete copy, sold off the other ones, bought this one, and this is definitely the one I spent the most money on. gosh, somewhere around 1800. I don't remember what it was at the time, but I had a ton of doubles at the time. I sold all. I bought that first. You know, I was in debt for a little bit because of that, and I never ever recommend doing that. But I wound up selling off all my other doubles, and they were high-end games too. I had multiple copies of Tournament Fighters, and again, Panic Restaurant, and a bunch of other stuff. So I sold off everything to kind of justify paying that much for it. And I don't think I would ever pay anywhere near that much for a game again. The only exception is stadium events. If I ever get a chance to buy that and I have the funds, which I definitely don't now, I will try to get that somehow. But you can't go for a complete NES set without trying to get stadium events. It's a shitty game. It's overpriced, I know, but you know, one of these days, hopefully, you know, I'll be able to get my hands on that one. So anyway, those are the games. My top 5 most expensive games for NES and other systems. Mike, Tyler, Chris, Brody, Joe, make the damn video. No pressure though. I hope you guys enjoyed this quick little look at my collection. I invite anybody who wants to do a video like this as a response. Send me a message, leave a comment, something, tag me somehow. Let me know that you're going to do it and I'll definitely check it out. So, thanks for watching. Have a good day.